AI can never replace you doing your own thinking. What if you turn hardship into grace, anger into serenity? Everything changes. Make your life a masterpiece. Welcome. In this video, I really want to talk about the good news about AI and what really matters, because what's going on now is that we go back what's truly matters if we are very intentional about. So let me explain. Luke Ferry, in his book Leah or AI, he makes a very important case that AI can never ever replicate you doing your own thinking. In other words, what really matters in the future is you doing you and being truly you. Because what the really world really wants and wants to see is authentic human beings. I give you an example. If I come across on YouTube a video that I realize is made up entirely by AI, I will just skip it. I'm not interested. Why? Because it's fake. And why is it fake? Because oftentimes it's perfect. And who is perfect? No one is perfect. So why do I want to waste my time to listen to something that is perfect? Now that doesn't mean that we should not aim for perfection, in that we want to get better and better every single day. Yes, but that's the process, and that's what really Carl Jung calls individuation. In other words, you want to bring together the past with the future, and that's really the present, and this is movement. It is transition, and that's what really life is. So you progress one step or two steps, you do forward one step back, and so on and so forth. So that's really life, the process. The beauty of life and you striving is making gradually process. And that doesn't mean progress, and that doesn't mean that you always will go forward. Sometimes you have to go 2 or 3 steps back in order to reflect, to truly introspect what you are doing, thinking, and thinking of you the way you ought to do or not. And therefore, AI is a huge opportunity that we find back to our really roots, what really means being human. It's you doing your own thinking. AI can never replace you doing your own thinking. It will never happen. You are the universe that manifests itself in every single moment. Everything that exists in the universe exists also in you. And that's really Neil Teese who said it beautifully. So therefore, what really comes down is we want to go back to what's most important, and that's being a human. That's your humanness. And that's, by the way, Father Joachim Ostermann, who also says that now, really more than ever, in his book, Remembering Francis, is the question, what's actually a person? And that's really what's going on right now, especially with AI. It will just accelerate the process of us becoming aware. Hey, who am and who am I supposed to become? And again, it's this process. It's a transition, and that's what life all is about. In other words, it is a transition in that up to our death, we also transition. I don't care if you're a believer or not, but ultimately, as Einstein said, everything is energy. And therefore, we will never perish. We will always exist, even in a material form in the sense of energy. But if you are a believer, for example, you believe that your soul is forever. So it's just a transition from being a body into something new. And that's the beauty, and that you can find in all the major religions. Okay? Hinduism, in Islam, Judaism, Christianity. And therefore, we have to cherish whoever we are. And we have to do our business, our thinking, truly every single day. And we cannot let it do by someone else. Never ever. Of course, we can use AI for our benefits. And as Carl Jung said, every advancement entails the same amount of positive and negative in and of itself. I give you an example. Sugar tastes great at the moment, right? Makes you feel better. But on the other hand, it also is detrimental for your health. In other words, whatever you do, there is always a positive and a negative. And this applies to policies, to politics, whatever it is. If you give people, let's say, a paycheck, it might be nice because they can buy stuff for themselves and might be able to actually get food, right? Because there are some people who don't have food. On the other hand, what you do is to some extent, you impede them to invent something to actually make sure that they get the food. In other words, if you give them just a fish and you don't teach them how to fish, then most likely you do something that in the long term has more negative implication than actually positive ones. And so therefore it's so important. We have to realize that now it's a time, it's the most amazing time ever, because our biggest journey is, as an indigenous saying goes, is from our mind to our heart. In other words, we have to bring both together. That's what Carl Jung refers to the individuation process, that we get together the unconscious and the conscious. In other words, the ego and the part of us that works while we are asleep. So these are two different realities, and we have to bring them together in order for us to really start striving and to decipher what we are truly meant to do in our lives. And one good way of doing so is really to first and foremost start figuring out your true values, because most likely you got some really incredible, important values transmitted from your family, from your grandparents, from your mother and father, and from your best friends. And therefore you have to be very careful about your values, and you have to decide. And Viktor Frankl, he said it very, very importantly. There is always a decision to make between the stimuli, that's the noise around you, for example the internet, and your response. And within there is a decision. In other words, a decision comes from the Latin word decidere. You have to cut off in order to really get the river flowing, because if you get all different streams together, then your river becomes very, very powerful. And that's ultimately focus. And you can only focus if you're actually are able to decipher what's really important to you. And that's first and foremost, you got to figure out your true values. And the best way to do this is usually to look back at the past and learn and see what people were able to actually do and what they actually did, in order for us to now enjoy this incredible life we have in North America and in Western Europe. We have democracy, we can voice our voice whenever we want, and we don't get punished. That's a privilege that we have that most people, probably 80% of the population, the world population, don't have. And therefore, it comes back to you doing your own thinking, and cherish it and make sure you decide what you actually want to listen to. Do you want to celebrate human beings and look at their unique ways of seeing, perceiving, and experience life? Or do you want to look and watch to perfection, such as a fake video that is solely made by AI, and think like you are somehow not enough? No. What we really need in this life, and that's what the future will hold, is the greatest value that you can bring is you doing truly yourself. It's you authenticity. That's what people are ultimately looking for. And therefore, embrace it. Take the good, for example, accessing information. And that doesn't mean that you should not or you should stop reading books. That becomes even more important because you need the quiet time in order to build your true authenticity. And everything that doesn't take years, that means that you're not in for the long haul. But being in for the long haul means true transformation, true individuation, because the individuation process is a lifelong journey. And that's what really matters, is you becoming you. Because what we need is you, because there's only one person who can really do you and the thinking that you are doing, and that's you. So cherish it, because that's the good news. AI forces us to truly embark on our individuation process of truly becoming us. If someone pretends to be perfect, it means fake, because there's no perfection. There is only a North Star that guides us, and for that, perfection might be a good thing because you want to get better and better, but we will never achieve it. It's always the process. And that's when we realize that, ultimately we realize that life and happiness is all about progress. As Tony Robbins, for example, says, progress equals happiness. It's all about the small wins that you get and make that really accumulate. And that's why decisions are so important, because your total decisions equal your present life, and therefore decide. And make sure you decide of becoming truly who you are meant to be, and doing you and thinking you for the benefit of yourself and really humanity. Because you know what? We need you, your true authenticity. No matter your age, if you're a young person, if you are an old person, the beauty that you bring onto the table is infinite. Enjoy, and talk to you soon. That's why knowledge matters. Make your life a masterpiece. Visit now programs.the-ykm.com. Meant to make you grow.